The letter arrived in an ordinary mailbox in an ordinary American town. There was no name on it, no return address, only a warning. Whoever wrote it knew things, private things, things no stranger should know. And over the next 20 years, thousands more would follow. This is Circleville, Ohio, a small farming town south of Columbus. In the 1970s, around 11,000 people lived here. It was the kind of place where everybody knew everybody, where people left their doors unlocked and their secrets, they believed, stayed buried. In 1976, that changed. Letters began to appear in mailboxes across the town. They were written in block capital letters, careful, deliberate, almost printed. They were always postmarked from Columbus, 30 miles away. And they were never signed. Some accused people of affairs. Some accused them of theft, or worse. They arrived at homes, at workplaces, at the offices of local officials. Whoever wrote them seemed to know the private life of almost everyone in town. One woman received more than any other. Her name was Mary Gillespie. Mary was a school bus driver. She was married, with 2 children. By every appearance, she lived a quiet, unremarkable life. The letters told her that her life was being watched. They accused her of having an affair with the superintendent of the school district. They ordered her to end it. And they told her something far more frightening. The writer claimed to be watching her house. One letter warned that if she did not stop, her husband would be told everything. Another told her not to go to the police, because the writer would know if she did. Mary was terrified, but she said nothing. Because part of what the letters said was true. The affair was real. Mary later admitted it. And that raised a question that has never been answered. How could a stranger know? Then the letters found her husband. His name was Ron Gillespie. He was a factory worker and a father. The writer told him what his wife was doing, and accused him of doing nothing about it. Ron and Mary tried to work out who could possibly be behind it. They studied the handwriting. They studied the words. They suspected people they knew. They suspected people they loved. And that, perhaps, was the point. The letters were pulling the town apart, one family at a time. Ron began to grow angry, and then he began to grow determined. He told his family that he believed he knew who the writer was. On the evening of the 19th of August, 1977, the telephone rang at the Gillespie house. Ron answered it. His children later said he became furious. He took his gun, he got into his truck, and he drove out into the night. He said he was going to meet the person on the other end of that phone. He never came home. His truck left the road and struck a tree. Ron Gillespie was dead. He was found in the wreck. His gun had been fired once. No one has ever explained what he was firing at. The authorities examined his blood and reported that he had been drinking heavily. His family refused to believe it. They said Ron rarely drank at all. In the end, his death was recorded as an accident. The case was closed, but the letters were not finished. Within weeks, new letters began to arrive. This time, they were about Ron. The writer claimed that his death had not been an accident at all. The writer claimed that the truth was being buried. And then, the letters turned on the men in charge. The sheriff of the county began receiving them at his own office. They accused him of covering up a murder. They accused him of being paid to look away. Letters were sent to his neighbors. Letters were sent to his family. Now the writer was not just watching a marriage. The writer was accusing the law itself. Investigators tried everything. They studied the paper, the ink, the postmarks. They compared handwriting samples from across the town. They watched the post boxes in Columbus. And they found nothing. Whoever it was moved through the town like a ghost and left no trace at all. Years passed. Ron Gillespie was buried. The letters kept coming. Mary Gillespie still drove her school bus every day along the same country roads. And then, in 1983, the writer stopped writing and started something else. Signs began to appear along Mary's bus route. Hand-painted, obscene. They insulted her. And then they began to insult her teenage daughter. Day after day, Mary drove past them. Day after day, she said nothing. Until one afternoon in February, she stopped the bus and got out. She walked up to one of the signs and reached out to tear it down. The sign was attached to a wooden box, and inside that box was a loaded handgun. It had been rigged with wire and aimed at whoever pulled the sign. Mary Gillespie was standing directly in front of it. The trap was designed to fire the moment she touched the sign. It did not fire. Something in the mechanism had failed. She was still alive, because of a fault in a piece of wire. The police took the box away. The serial number on the gun had been filed off, but it had not been erased completely. In the laboratory, the numbers were recovered, and the gun had an owner. His name was Paul Freshour. Freshour was not a stranger. He was family. He was married to Ron Gillespie's sister. He had sat at their table. He had known them for years. He worked at a local factory. He had no criminal record. Freshour said the gun had been stolen from him. He said he had not fired it in years. Investigators asked him to write out the text of the letters by hand. When they compared the samples, they said the writing matched. Freshour insisted he had been told exactly how to write them. The gun, the trap, the handwriting, the family connection, every thread led to one man. In October of 1983, Paul Freshour was convicted of attempting to murder Mary Gillespie. He was sentenced to years in prison. The town believed it was finally over. The letters had a face at last. And then the letters started again. While Paul Freshour sat in a prison cell, mail was still arriving in Circleville. The same block capitals, the same rage, the same Columbus postmarks. Letters went to the same houses, to officials, to the press, and one letter went somewhere no one expected. It was delivered to Paul Freshour himself, inside the prison. The writer taunted him. The writer told him he was never getting out. Freshour was being held under strict watch. His mail was monitored. The prison stated that he could not have sent those letters, and still, no one could say who did. Years later, the case was shown on national television. Millions of people watched the story of the town that received the letters. And afterwards, the people who made the program received letters of their own, postmarked Columbus, written in block capitals, warning them to stay away. Paul Freshour was released in 1994. He spent the rest of his life saying the same thing, that he never wrote a single word. He died in 2012, still insisting he was innocent. Around the time he walked free, the letters stopped. There was no confession, no arrest, no final answer. They simply ended, the way they had begun, in silence. Nobody knows how many letters were sent. The estimates run into the thousands. Nobody knows how one person could know so much about so many lives. Nobody knows what Ron Gillespie learned in the moment that telephone rang. Somewhere in that small Ohio town, someone sat down, night after night, for almost 20 years. They knew who was lying. They knew who was afraid. They knew everything, and they were never found. And the strangest thought of all is this: whoever it was almost certainly walked those streets in daylight. They shopped in the same stores. They waved at the same neighbors. And they may have been buried there, in the same quiet ground, with the answer.